sort, and we did a cytotoxicity as well as an infectivity. By the way, as you see, saponin I have removed, but Basant doesn't have it. My first formulation, Praneem had it, but Basant, we have removed it. The rest of them are completely safe, very well tolerated by the woman. I didn't know that aloe vera kills HPV. The virus HPV 16, 18, the viruses which cause the carcinoma of the cervix, they are the causative factors. That's the virus which leads eventually to carcinoma of the cervix, which is a major cancer of the women. And I think again here, I'll in fact show you a trial which has been carried on the HPV a little later. Now here is the trial which was carried on by Professor Rajeshri Sharma of Jawaharlal Nehru Medical College, Aligarh, along with Professor B.C. Das, who was at one time the director of ICPO, but he is an expert in HPV. You know, he worked with Harold Horowitz, the person who got the Nobel Prize for HPV, and he continues his interest in HPV, and he is the one who did the assay for HPV in the biopsies that Rajeshri took. So Rajeshri Sharma, professor, screened 159 patients, and out of them 19 were positive for HPV. Then we told them that we will only enroll those who gave us written consent that they will follow, because the trial was that you have to take for 30 days Basant every night except for the days of the menstruation. Every night you must take a Basant for 30 days. So out of 19, 11 were wise enough, and they said, okay, we will undergo the whole course. And it is on those 11 that the trial was conducted out of the 19. But what is, even to me, highly surprising and pleasurable is to know that all of them, without exception, became HPV negative from the HPV positivity state. I mean, to see that a cell which is already infected and is going on the path of it's at the early stage of development of the sort of the CIN or the LSIL something stage. But at that stage, not only to inhibit the entry of HPV into the cervical cells, which Schiller had reported, but after a cell is infected and is already on the path of going to the cancer, to throw out that virus and to restore the cell free of the virus, which would have ultimately led to the cancer, I think is a great achievement for any medication, be it herbal or be it otherwise. Herbal is cheap. Now here is the details of the trial. It's already accepted. By the way, it was accepted in 1 week of my submission. They were so impressed with the data that we sent. The Journal of Cancer Therapy, it is impressed. And you see, this is the age of the patients, 11 patients. In the first column, their parity, they were all young children. And then the pap smear, how it was looking, how it was sort of graded. And then the HPV 16, which B.C. Das, along with his some worker, carried on. They were all positive for HPV. And then after treatment, after 30 days of intake of HPV, all the 11 of them without exception, became negative. I think it's most impressive and something which takes on my hat for this polyhedral formulation. So now let me come to something else which we were all worried about, HIV. So right in 2008 paper, the Gustavo Donsel of Conrad had tested Basan, and he observed that indeed it inhibits the entry of HIV virus in P4CCR5 type of cells, and it's reported, it's published, their data with their names. And then, that I think again Kulkarni, Samita Kulkarni at Nari, Pune ICMR Institute also observed that it does it at early stage of infection. Most recently, right in 2014, is a paper from Oregon University, USA, Manoj Pasti and his colleagues. He says that Basant is effective against both CCR5 as well as CXCR2. There are two types of receptors that HIV uses for entry into lymphoid cells. Against both types of tropic viruses, Basant is a barrier. I think it's a very encouraging sort of finding as far as I'm concerned, and therefore I think its use by the woman would also protect her not only from vaginosis and from HPV, but will also protect her from gonorrhea and candida and chlamydia, but will also protect her from HIV. Now, let me tell you the trial that we have conducted. But in conducting of these trials, I had another thought too. And that thought was that, the vagina is an organ whose a healthy vagina has an acidic pH of 4.5, or it's in any case below 4, sometimes even below 4 it goes. And this is very strange. When the body has a pH of 7.4, and we know that even a so small alteration in the pH of the body puts in so many regulatory mechanisms to set it again back to 7.4, how come that one of the organs of the body has acidic pH? Well, the answer was given by the finding that vagina harbors and co-survives with some other living cells which are the lactobacilli, or which we call the probiotics, mostly lactobacilli. These lactobacilli make lactic acid, and it is this lactic acid which renders the vagina the acidic pH. So you see again with this student, by the way, she did her MSc from Banasthali University in Rajasthan, and she did her PhD with me, and we set a goal of isolating strains of lactobacilli from healthy women, from 80 women with their written consent. We isolated the lactobacilli, then characterized them at the molecular level by the genus and species and the strain specific PCRs. These are all published now. You can see those who are interested in that detail. Then, we made another finding which was very, very unbelievable to begin with. We thought all lactobacilli, especially of the same species, should be the same, should have the same property. That is not the case. Even in a given species of lactobacillus, there are strains which vary in their properties, in their ability and quantity of making lactic acid, in their ability to make arginine deaminase, which is the enzyme which counteracts the making of foul odor. The foul odor is created by this enzyme acting, it gives the derivatives of arginine which are foul smelling. And then hydrophobicity is necessary to settle on the endometrium. And again, H2O2 production is the immediate reaction of the lactobacillus to kill whatever is around it. So here is again a published data, but which shows that there are strains from healthy women make more of lactic acid, and strains from unhealthy women make very low lactic acid. So even if a woman has lactic acid, she has wrong strains, which that is why her pH is not 4.5 but above 5. So we again, therefore it was normal to have the combination tried. It was natural because Basant would kill the bacilli, but we need the healthy bacillus lactobacilli to settle in that unhealthy vagina. So we made a combination which we call, first of all, the ProVeg Health is a combination of 3 selected strains of probiotics. These are Lactobacillus fermentum, Gesseri, and Salivarius. 3 strains of selective, very high meritorious properties. By the way, they are internationally patented and they are deposited in National Repository at the Institute of Microbial Technology. But you see, let me again tell you that what I am telling you, my aim is not to only write papers, but to see that if you are doing something which is useful, it should reach the people sooner or later. And that can only happen if you link up with industry. So I am very lucky. I have to try. Everybody who tries succeeds. So I have passed on the culture of these selected, very high quality lactobacilli to Messrs. Microbacs Hyderabad, who grows it on a mass scale, lyophilizes it with stabilizer for keeping for several months, if not years. So they make for us capsules for our phase 2 trial, which is containing 3 billion lactobacilli, 1 billion each of these 3. Basant is passed on. HLL, the condom makers, that's a government company, in Thiruvananthapuram, because they want to not only help for vaginosis, but also for all the other things that it can do. Now, the clinical trials were carried out at 2 well-known institutions, at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences under Professor Alka Kripalani, and at Sir Gangaram Hospital under Professor Indrani Ganguly, with the approval of the Drugs Controller General of India and institutional ethics committees. Now we recruited 80 patients with vaginosis. They were divided into 4 groups of 20 each. One was treated only with probiotics. The second group was treated with Basant. The third was treated with the combination of the 2, which by the way I want to call Noros. Noros is a new name, so it's a nice name. And combination is difficult to speak about. Noros is easy to say. And then obviously for any research one must have a placebo also, because there are spontaneous healings also which occur. So 20 women were taken in the placebo. All of them were asked to take the treatment, whether one or the other or the combination or the placebo, for 7 nights. 1 capsule or 2 capsules every night. Combination would be 2, others would be 1 capsule every night for 7 days, and then come to the clinic to show what has happened. Now, this is what happens. You have, to begin with, when they came, they had a normal vaginal discharge, which is shown on the left, And after treatment, which is 7 days intake of one or the other, look, the cervix looks healthy now, no longer surrounded by that dirty discharge. And then you know in vaginosis with the variety of aerobic and anaerobic microorganisms which are infecting, you read them by this test called clue cells, presence or absence of clue cells, which are cells with a gram stain. You can see they are surrounded with a lot of bacteria, those cells. So this is what a woman with vaginosis will have. Look what happens after she has taken the treatment for 7 days. There are no such clue cells. On the other hand, there are the healthy lactobacilli sitting on a healthy endometrium. So there is a real change in the vagina. The pH, which before was on enrollment, you see how colored that is. After treatment, it goes back to the acidic range, which is you see the change straight from the paper that you can use for this. The other test is a whiff test for the fishy odor. It is performed with 10% KOH. And normally, on enrollment, they produce fishy odor by whiff test. The cells from the women who have vaginosis. But after treatment, there is no such fishy odor at all. The whiff test becomes negative. So on all these criteria, let me show you what the results we got. Now here are the 20 women of the group which were taking the pro-veg health, this group of probiotics alone. So they were effective, but not in 20 out of 20 women. They were effective in 13 out of 20 women. And indeed, all the criteria of the discharge disappearing, pH returning, and the itching, etc. disappearing, the clue cells disappearing, lactobacilli coming. So therefore you can see that they are effective, the probiotics alone also, but not in 100% cases, only in 65% cases, 30 out of the 20 women in this group. Basant, on the other hand, was effective in 14 out of 20 women, which means slightly more, 70% of women. And again, it's the same criteria of effective treatment. All these things becoming. What happens with the combination with Narose? Look what happens. 19 out of 20 women, nearly every woman, was benefited. There is nothing in the world literature, no antibiotic, metronidazole or other antibiotics. All the literature says 65 to 70% of effective treatment with these antibiotics. And again, antibiotics, some are resistant also. There is recurrence very frequently because they also finish off the lactobacilli. And the nausea and other things are there. None of these things would happen with this Narose, with this combination. All the women were very happy. In fact, they wanted to continue taking the Narose. Very highly satisfied. All the women, 19 out of 20. So you see, this is the summary of these phase 2 trials. This is also published, and you see now where are we going? Obviously, it looks all very rosy, but the number is not large enough to draw final conclusions. So the statistical unit at ICMR advised us to expand the trials to 60 women. 60 women would be taken on the combination or ROS, and 60 would be treated with the comparator, an antibiotic which is currently used, metronidazole. So permission of DCGI and ethics committees is awaited, and as soon as it comes, we hope to go ahead and finish this task, this last task in this last type of a problem. So summary, what have I told you? What I have told you is that we have a polyherbal, let's not belittle our herbs. They have also capacity. We have realized what curcumin does, and in our home we treat curcumin as a matter of fact. It inhibits Pneumorrhea, including drugs-resistant strains. It inhibits free as well as infected Chlamydia, Trachomatis, albicans, and Tropicales. It inhibits HIV of all tested strains, both CCR5 and CXL, CR4 tropic viruses. Then, we have isolated 80 strains of probiotics, and they are these three. They are deposited, they are patented internationally, because you see, while they are sold as live bacilli. So we don't want these bacilli to be passed on to others. What about our company who makes it? Poor fellow, they should make some profit also. And then you see the phase 2 trials were conducted. These things, combination of Basan plus Pro-Vegel cures 95% of the highest ever reported in literature. And what is more, this also eliminates HPV-16 from infected cervical cells of every woman positive for HPV. By the way, we sent this paper to the breast, the journal Cancer Therapy. Within 1 week, they accepted it. So it's amazing. Everybody is impressed with what Basan can do. So I am only a speaker and thinker, and as he says, inspirer. But these are the people who deserves credit for what actually happens in the lab. So for my own laboratory, I have Nishu, Yatre, and Priyanka. They are my current two concerned with the phase 2, and now they will be going for phase 3 trial. Kavita Garg, Bansal, an old product of Banastari, did her research with us to find this probiotic. Jagdish Gupta is my colleague and looks after whatever I can't do. And then the hospitals, Dr. Alka Kriplani, Dr. Rohini Sehgal, and then Dr. Jayashree Sharma at the Aligarh University did the HPV trials. And our DC Das, of course, who is now retired, I'm told, and then E. Sharma, and Manju Bala at the STD Center. And so all these are people who have in fact done the work. They or their students have done the work which I have shared with you. Thank you so much. And I'm there.
With Nowroz, with the lactobacillus. So I think you must have a lot of questions. So please, you must have a lot. An audience like you would have some questions. So please, although it's been an excellent lecture, any questions you have, please ask. Anybody? Any questions?
Yes.
Dr. Kamboj, please.
Will you get the retroswim glycerin stage? Sorry?
You check your lactobacillus gastritis stage. The latest antibiotic, effective against multi-drug resistant leukemia, has come from this. That's leticillin. Leticillin. Check your lactobacillus gastritis.
Well, you know, the question is the latest would also be the very expensive drug.
No, very expensive. I said check whether this.
Look, your Basant will be in pennies, in rupees, whereas in hundreds of rupees and thousands of rupees.
So you may come across.
No, I agree. For our research, thank you for the information. I will, maybe we should even, but you know, what we have already applied to the drug controller is against metronidazole, which is currently used in the clinics.
So Lexubacillin, that vaccine is just, antibiotic is just in the initial stages. I just gave you.
Okay, that is also proven. Of course, all progress is there on all fronts.
Nobody expected that the lactobacillus strain would be producing any antibiotic. That's how the vagina remains sterile. That's the main finding.
Okay.
Professor Talwar, one of the bugbears of working on plants has always been standardization. How did you get over this?
Very important, because unless you standardize, you are roaming in the sea. You see, you cannot have consistency of preparation from batch to batch. So there has been a whole protocol, thorough protocol of purification, of quality checking by a variety of criteria before you mix them. That is why they have been taken by industry. Industry will not take anything which is not replicable. And we will not use product of industry without dependability. So that has been taken care of.
So that means that every sample that comes, every plant that comes has been standardized. You will get the same effect
Absolutely.
every preparation, which has been the problem with plant research.
I agree with you. Curcumin now is available in the highly purified 95 to 97% purity. Aloe vera is available in very highly purified form. The standardization necessary was put to other varieties. Amla and the
Other question.
Sir, gut microbiome now is a very.
sorry.
There is a microphone coming up.
Yeah, gut microbiome is a promising gut microbiota. Okay, microbiota. Because you are using the probiotic and when you are getting the better results. So I am just asking anybody doing kind of the basic thing, that is how much change is coming with there. It's a simple just ATS or.
You need an expert in microbiota. We were only concerned with different field.
Yeah, I know. This
Oh, by the way, I must tell you, I might give you the latest information. Massive Microbacs are going to sell this Sun
yes.
to the ProVet Health University Probiotics to an American company, and they wanted a trial by the oral route. So this trial has been done. We have been sent the results of those trials by Massive Microbacs, but I haven't gone through them. What these trials are, but they are satisfied. They are rolling in, and it will be used by the oral route. These not just by the vaginal.
By the oral.
But you have to take it for 28 days instead of 7 days.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a problem.
But Americans can afford.
Any other questions? So let me ask Professor Talwar, how did he select these plants?
How did I select?
We want to know the history.
Yes. You know, curcumin, I know.
That's a move a little back of the mic.
You know, curcumin, as I was telling you, is a wonder drug. It has anti-inflammatory and anti-cancerous properties. And we also know the mechanism by which it acts. it acts through DNF kappa B chain. So, it can block the failure of apoptosis, let apoptosis occur. It has anti-inflammatory, all that things. So, and one of we collaborate, Bharat Agarwal, who works at Anderson, is working a lot on curcumin, and we collaborate now and then in various issues. But you see, the curcumin, I have no doubt, it is something which is anti-inflammatory, it is anti-cancerous. And it hasn't been tested against the microbes. Who knows, it also acts against the microbes. And now we have tested, in all these microbes, each individual component has also been tested as also the combination. Aloe vera again was a discovery. It is highly active against HPV-16, and then it gives the type of lubrication you need for vagina. Neem leaves, I've worked on neem so much, and I have prepared the extracts from that. I know their pros and cons and their standardization. So that is and the last component, amla. Amla was more taken from because of our, heritage. Amla is good for this, good for that. But I don't think amla has been tested individually in those many things. It's taken for its good properties. What we had to do was to have an extract prepared which can be replicated, sort of, with the same properties. So purification rate is standardized. So that is how.
Yes, please. Take a mic.
Sir, my question is, did you find any change in effectiveness after taking out saponin from the list of components?
Let me tell you first that I took out all these side effects. Saponins we had included originally to have spermicidal properties. Like what you will be hearing about, the multi-MTP type of story. But it can also, give you contraception, why not? So saponins can give that things. But it also, many times, whenever there were complaints of irritation and such problems by the woman, though she tolerated it, but your phase 1 trials in PGI, there are women who complained, but at the same time they wanted it. So there was an acceptability, but there were also complaints. At that time we had, in the cream form, we had saponins involved. So building up, upgrading this formulation and making it into a powder form, we threw it out. And I don't think we have lost much, because our aim here is not to necessarily look for contraception, but to look after her safety. First of all, if she already has some infections, let it go away. Second, it should impart her protection against all these variety of bacilli that I have named: gonorrhea, chlamydia, candida, and HIV, HPV. It protects against so many things. So why bother? That's already a good thing to do. And let me now further tell you that the only complaint, if at all, because women used the bat, we told them it will, curcumin has yellow color, so it will give you a yellow, vagina, but don't get alarmed because of haldi. Now they did not complain to us, but we felt then from an aesthetic angle, can we get rid of the yellow color? In the next formulation that we will make, there will be no yellow color. It's on the route. You see, it's on the go. Because that was in my eyes, the only drawback in this, that it gives the yellow color of the coconut.
Last comment.
Sir, in your opinion, what is the physiological reason to have the pH of vagina and the acidic?
Sorry?
In your opinion, what is the physiological reason to have the pH of vagina at acidic level 5.5?
Well, you are posing a question, why did nature so plan that vagina should be at 4.5?
Yeah.
I think the reason is vagina is very much open to infections. Not only because of what the partner brings to her, but even otherwise it's an open cavity and open to all types of hygiene and mode of living and things of that sort. And it's the urinary tract and things of that sort. So therefore, it is because of the inherent susceptibility of vagina to infections that nature devised that let there be another bacillus which should learn to cohabit with the endometrial cell, co-survive and flourish, and same time produce lactic acid, keep its pH down. The lower pH protects against a variety of infections. All microorganisms don't grow at that pH. So it's a normal protection that the vagina gets if it is at acidic pH.
Thank you.
Is that all?
Thank you very much. All the very best. It remains for me to thank Professor Talwar for this brilliant talk. We have learnt a lot. We have brought to clinical trial our traditional system of medicine, which is not easy. And we wish him all the best in the future.
Excellent.
Professor Talwar, lots of success. Let's give him a big hand. Fine. And now I want to hand over to Dr. Namita Chandev. Is Dr. Nomita Chandlok here? Yes? Or you take over from me? What do you want me to do?
He will be the chairperson and conduct the session.
Huh?
You are the chairperson for the entire session.
But I have to preside over the entire session, that's fine. I'll be happy to do so. So then we won't wait, we shall go straight on. Let me ask Dr. Nomita Chandev to come and present her paper on MPT, need, role and potential impact. I think you would have read a very interesting paper in this. Yes, madam.
Thank you, sir. After that very interesting presentation of Dr. Talwar's scientific journey on microbicides and on the vaccine, we move on to multipurpose prevention technologies. I'll be speaking on the need, role and its potential impact. And we all know that women have varying sexual reproductive health needs over time. And younger women, when they are actually their adolescents, and especially if sexually active, their main priority is how to delay the first birth. And when women are in their active reproductive age group, planning and spacing of pregnancy becomes a priority. And then in older women, they need long-term or a permanent method of contraception. But what remains constant during a woman's reproductive years is her need for prevention of STI, RTIs and HIV. And so if there is a product which would be able to provide a woman with the healthy timing and spacing of intended pregnancies and protection against sexually transmitted infections, including HIV, we would be addressing her primary sexual and reproductive health concerns. And so these really are what are the multipurpose prevention technologies which we are talking about. And these are a range of prevention options which will enable women to address their sexual and reproductive health concerns as they change over time. So a product or a technology which would prevent any 2 out of the 3, we would term it as a multipurpose prevention technology, and this would lead to better protection and empower women to improve their sexual and reproductive health. These products, most of them are still under research, still under a lot of work going on for their development, but they have a lot of potential benefits, and the health impact of these MPTs would be that they would reduce unintended pregnancy, they would reduce STIs including HIV, reduce maternal mortality by preventing the unintended pregnancies, reduce costs associated with infections and treatments, avert the risk of infertility and cancer, which we know that many of the STIs, if left untreated, can lead to infertility and cancer, and so improve the health of women and families. And we know that between contraceptive and the HIV/STI prevention field, they are silos with researchers, with funders, with developers working into individual separate areas. So through MPTs, we are also looking at breaking these silos between contraception and HIV/STI prevention. Historical precedents are available of where one product is being used and something else has been added to it to provide benefit to women. We know the contraceptive pill, iron has been added to it, and so that helps the woman. So they are proven models which are available on which these MPTs are being developed on. Coming to the global need for MPTs, we know that there are about 222 million women who have an unmet need for modern contraceptive, and in the morning Dr. Roy Chaudhary had also mentioned during the inaugural on how even in the national program currently we are only having 5 products, whereas there are so many other modern contraceptives which, if there is scientific evidence to say that they would be beneficial, can be provided to the woman. Complications related to pregnancy and childbirth lead to high number of maternal mortality, and this is especially seen in developing countries. And also we have the epidemic of HIV/AIDS, where more than 1.7 million people die and 2.5 million become infected every year. Importantly, every 60 seconds a young woman is infected with HIV, and especially in Africa and in some other parts of the country where there are about 30 to 40% of young women who are infected with HIV. And 1 million people contract an STI every day. So really there is a global need for which we would need MPTs or a product which would prevent women from getting this. This is just a representation of the areas in the world where there is a high prevalence rate, there is high total fertility rate, cervical cancer instances high, and the percentage of women deaths are high. And if you see, it is Africa and South Asia where all this is happening. They have high HIV prevalence rates, high fertility rates, high cervical cancer instance, and the percentage of women dying. And so these are really the areas where MPTs would have a very high role to play. Coming to India, do we need multi-indication prevention in India? And we know that there is an urgent need to reduce the population growth. We have the distinction of currently having 1.2 billion. That is our population, and soon we are going to cross the population of China and be the most populous country in the world. Our total fertility rate, and these are figures from the NFHS3, which are older figures, but our total fertility rate has now come down to 2.3 according to 2013, but what is desired is 2.1. And as mentioned earlier, many of the states have reached the desired TFR, but still the larger states which are contributing to the major amount of the population, the TFR is still high. And if the unwanted fertility is averted, our TFR will reach replacement level. We also know that preventing unintended pregnancy saves maternal lives. And if you see our maternal mortality ratio, it has come down, so we have done well. But it currently stands at 167 and the desired is 109. So if we have another contraceptive or another technology which would contribute to the contraceptive method mix, we know that that would make a difference and would the contraceptive prevalence would increase and the maternal mortality ratio would come down. And unintended pregnancies also lead to high number of abortions. And these abortions in India especially, even though MTP has been legalized, we still have high levels of abortion rates which are done, which are illegal abortions, and they contribute to about 8% of the maternal mortality. Nearly a fourth of teenage girls are pregnant or mothers by the age of 18, and these are the young girls which have the major problem of the maternal mortality and also of the morbidity. And by expanding the basket of choices, we will improve the contraceptive choice and we will also enhance use of birth spacing. Our estimated HIV infections are 2.8 million. We have done well, the program has done well, the number of HIV, our prevalence has come down to now 0.27%, but nearly 40% of those infected are women, and the epidemic is heterogeneous in distribution with some districts showing a high prevalence, but what is alarming is that the districts which earlier had low prevalence are now showing, so there are pockets of high prevalence coming up in areas which hitherto were considered to be those of low prevalence, and heterosexual transmission is more than 85%. If you see our STI, RTI prevalence in the country, the data which we have is mostly from small studies. There is no community-based data which is representative of the country. That is one of the drawbacks we have currently. Most of these studies are hospital-based and small studies, but if you see the trend, we know that the bacterial STIs are coming down, whereas the viral STIs are increasing, and we are having increasing HPV, we are having increasing prevalence of HSV2 and HIV. So we tried to compare the reproductive indicators in the high and low HIV prevalence states, and if you see the low HIV prevalence states, they have high maternal mortality rates, they have low usage of any family planning method, and the total fertility rates are high. In contrast, if you see the high HIV prevalence states, the HIV prevalence is high and the family planning method used is high. And so which is kind of a dichotomy, but if you see that the family planning method which has been used mostly in these states is sterilization. So most of the women get sterilized at a young age, but so even though their contraceptive needs are fulfilled, their infection prevention needs are still there and they are exposed to getting HIV. Amongst the available MPTs, we know that the female condom and the male condoms are available, but their rates of usage are low, and it is difficult for women sometimes to negotiate the use of a condom with her male partner. And the future of MPTs, which more of it will be spoken by a speaker after me, but these could be drug combinations, they could be drug device combinations, they could be multi-purpose vaccines, bacterial therapeutics, which some were mentioned. They could be lactobacilli, and then they could be nanoparticles. Now, currently available products in India, as I said, is the male and the female condom. And if you see the male condom, over the years, the usage of the male condom has just marginally increased. And it is about 5.5%, and that is mainly because of this emphasis put in through the HIV program by NACO, where large amount of condom distribution was done. And even when it was trying to investigate to see whether there was any condom use before marriage, and it was seen that only 7% of young women and 27% of young men who had premarital sex had ever used a condom. So really, these are the young people where their risks are much higher, and we do know that there are changing social norms and sexual norms amongst youngsters these days, and so their exposure to getting an STI or an HIV is much higher. Whereas the female condoms are concerned, they are not currently available under the program, but they are only given to the high-risk groups under social marketing. So NACO has its programs where it is given to the high-risk groups under, and they have to pay a very small amount for it under social marketing. Commercially, these are too expensive, and so there is a low demand. But now cheaper female condoms are being made by HLL, and these are about, but still they are expensive, so they are about maybe 20 to 25 rupees per condom. There is a learning curve for acceptability and use, but it is seen to improve over time. And sexuality, communication and negotiation skills need to be embedded in users' education. So the users would need to negotiate with their partners to be able to use a female condom. Consistent use is difficult to achieve, and also currently in India we have limited data on female condom acceptability in the general population, though under the ICMR we are supporting currently few studies on the female condom. We did a study on a comparative acceptability of the male condom and the FC2 female condom in young Indian couples who were seeking contraceptive options, and these were couples who had never used either a male or a female condom before, and we tried to understand from them whether as compared to the male condom, would a female condom be acceptable, and also we wanted to see the functionality of the male and the female condom, and on these 12 parameters and on a 5-point Likert scale, we did ask them whether the female condom was acceptable. And we did find that as compared to the male condom, the acceptability of the female condom was less. But also our intention was not to replace the female condom, the female condom with for a couple to use a female condom and not the male condom, but to use it in situations where the couple is not wanting to use the male condom, and in those the woman would be able to use the female condom and protect herself. Now, MPT product development is extremely complex because the indications can be all the indications which I mentioned over here, starting from pregnancy, HIV and all the other STIs. The mechanisms of action are varied. The dosage and the administration forms can be topical pericoital, or it can be oral pericoital, topical daily, oral daily. So there are so many different ways where it can be administered, and so many different formulations or delivery systems. So these combinations, permutations make MPT product development extremely complex. And moreover, if you see where the drug development is concerned, for a drug to develop and for it to reach phase 3 and it go for regulatory approval, there is at least a period of 15 years, and then even after product introduction it takes about 6 to 7 years for the product introduction and for a follow-up on it to be done, and it's hugely expensive, and up till now on MPTs unfortunately industry has not put in any money, so it's mostly the public health research organizations internationally who who feel that this is an important area where work needs to be done and are currently putting money on it.
How much more have you got?
5 minutes. Sir.
Finishing?
No, yeah, just a couple of minutes, yeah. So, the MPT roadmap is not linear and the target MPT product profiles have been prepared, but what we need to do is try and understand what the priority indications for India would be, whether it would be HIV and pregnancy or HIV and STI, and on different fora we have discussed this, and perhaps what has really come out that for India it would be either HIV and pregnancy would be the priority indication, or STI and pregnancy would be the priority indication. Currently also for product development there is work going on in India, and you did hear of from Dr. Talwar on the work which is being done on Basant, and Basant it prevents so many STIs, so it is a multi-purpose prevention technology. And other work has been done on food preservatives and on other natural and synthetic products. But what we also need to understand what would drive the product usage, because usage of the product and adherence to usage is extremely important, and it is the perceived need, the safety and effectiveness, women's ability to take a decision, the partner's support and their comfort level in using vaginal products, because there are reports saying that women in India are not comfortable using vaginal products. And NFHS 3 data showed that only 2/3 of women could participate in any decision making where their own health care was concerned. Again, would women use a microbicide? And women were asked this while clinical trials were going on usage of microbicide, and if you can see, a large number of women said that they were willing to use this in the future. That means in the form of a gel or a tablet or a cream, they would be willing to use this. ICMR had an international symposium in 2012 where we had stakeholders from an international participants, and where we were trying to sensitize them and update them on MPT development, and coming to what the MPT research priorities for India are. So we are working from drug development onwards, so whether it's drugs and devices, and for devices it's even newer designs of the female condom. Then clinical trials for safety and efficacy, community-based STI prevalence, as I said, it's not available and it's really something which is required. Then acceptability of the female barrier methods, and now there are new female barrier methods, improved female barrier methods which are now available, like the diaphragm and the vaginal rings. Providers and users' perspective and how that can be incorporated into product design. And feasibility of introducing female condoms in the program, because that is really something which our policy makers have told us that, let us know whether it is feasible to introduce it. And then also health providers capacity building and communication strategies by which utilization of the products would be used. So the implications for India of these MPTs are that there is a great potential for a public health impact, and these would help us in achieving our national goals. But however, the products will need to be tailored to address the women's changing needs throughout their life cycle. So it's not one product, we would need a suite of products, because we would need products which prevent HIV in pregnancy, products which prevent STIs in pregnancy, products which need to prevent HIV and STIs. So a suite of products would be required. But the socio-cultural beliefs and practices, the gender dynamics, the users and providers' perspective, and how these products would be positioned to improve their acceptability. These are very important, and this is really going to make a difference on whether these products are going to be acceptable or not acceptable. And globally, there is the initiative of the multi-purpose prevention technologies, where they are supporting, and this includes funders, it includes product developers, it includes advocates, it includes people working in the social sciences who have all got together knowing that this is an important area and research needs to be done on it. And there is 4 areas where it's mainly working. One is the supporting agency collaboration, whereas the funders are collaborating together and to see what is the area where they really need to put on their money on what are the knowledge gaps which would and how they need to be addressed to move this field further. The scientific agenda where the research priorities are prioritized, the communications and advocacy, and also thinking now only in terms of